Can we begin now?
We're live now, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the AONB Partnership and Joint Committee. There are no instructions of any kind, I don't think, Ian, are there?
Other than to inform people that the meeting is live on the webcast, Chair.
That's fine. So go straight into the agenda, and the first part is actually to introduce ourselves. I think it's sensible to introduce each other because there will be people watching in who may not know us as well as we know ourselves. So I'm Frances Beattie. I'm the Cabinet Member at Stafford Borough Council for Economic Development and Planning. In order of what I can see, can I go to you, Jeff?
Hello everyone, Jeff Sim, Senior Conservation Manager for Staffordshire Wildlife Trust.
Ian?
Ian Marshall, Development Officer for Cannock Chase AONB.
Nikki? You're on mute.
Apologies. Nikki Mihailovic, Senior Finance Business Partner supporting families and communities.
Thank you. Alan?
Yes, Alan Pearson, Cannock Chase District Council, Cabinet Member of Community Safety and Partnerships.
Thank you. Victoria?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Victoria Wilson, Cabinet Member at Staffordshire County Council for Communities and Culture.
And Pepita?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pepita Hanna, Associate Director for Arts Connect.
Richard?
Richard Harris, AONB Management Officer.
Len?
Len Bates, South Staffordshire Councillor, Cabinet Member for Community Services.
And then Louise?
Hello everyone, I'm Louise Rose, Chair of Cannock Chase Cultural Education Partnership and also Creative Development Officer at Inspiring Healthy Lifestyles.
Thank you. Am I missing somebody? That's all I can see. In that case, silence. I take silence as assent. Can we have apologies, Ian?
Yes, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Ian Eady at Lichfield Council. Julian Wolford from Staffordshire Wildlife Trust. We have Jeff here. Jacqueline Lake from Natural England. Jenny Oldroyd from the RSPB. And Thomas Cox from CEMEX. And then, Chair, we also have apologies from a number of people who are saying goodbye to the Joint Committee for various reasons. So Mike Shermer from the RSPB is moving on to another role nationally within the organisation. Sam Carraway from the National Trusts is staying with the Trust, but he's moving on to another role. Hazel McDowell from Natural England is on a secondment for 6 months, but hopefully she'll be returning back to Staffordshire. And then Glenn Watson from Cannock Chase Council is retiring at the end of this month, Chair. Those are all the apologies.
Can I just say, with regard to two particular members who are leaving, and have put in a huge amount of work. One is Glenn Watson and the other is Mike Shermer. They've been a massive asset to the work that we've done on the AONB partnership, and and also to Sam at the National Trust. Can we just send them a note wishing them well in their next stage of life?
Certainly, Chair. Thank you.
If there's nothing else on there, we can approve the minutes. Anybody propose?
I'll propose those.
Second.
Well, second them, Chair, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you very much. Any matters arising from the minutes? I'll take it page by page. The first page is actually page 2, then page 3. any items to raise there? Matters. I think a lot of these come up on the agenda anyway, don't they?
So most of them do, Chair. I'll just chip in where things don't. So under 3.1,
yeah,
on page 3, Julia has written to all of the chairs of the planning committees of the local planning authorities, as you requested, Chair. I don't know if Julia wants to come in there and.
There's nothing really to report as arising. I have written to them, and I did get a response from South Staffordshire saying that they were, of course, aware of the guides, but yeah, it's been raised as you requested, Chair.
Okay, whether it should have gone to the head of service rather than a chairman. With great respect to my colleagues on the local authorities, I wouldn't want to think that that your message got lost somewhere in the emails of the chairman of the committee. But I think it's also up to us perhaps to have a word when we're at our own local authorities, to have a word with the head of planning and sound because it seems a shame that they acknowledge, and you've done a tremendous job, Julia, with them, I know, from my authority, but the fact that they aren't in a sense adopting our guidelines, I think it's a pity.
Well, the guides have already been sent out at officer level, Chair, and I think it was just that you felt that it was appropriate that it should go out to members as well. So yeah, it is there, and it is, as far as I'm aware, it is being referred to, and I'm certainly referring to both guides when I make responses and encouraging officers to make applicants aware and to use it in their responses as well.
The other one on 3.2 was that Len has asked your planners to make you aware of planning applications that affect the chase, which seems a very good idea, and I've overlooked that and I haven't done it, so I will follow that up with my local authority now. So usually the ward member tells me, but even so, it's just a good fail-safe.
Well, if there is an application now where we have concerns, I am sending those, copying my response to the elected member on the AONB committee.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. I'm moving down the sheet now. I'm on page 4.
Chair, could I bring up about was it 4? I'm trying to find out. It was about birch being in about the nightjars breeding, and obviously birch growing in all the areas, affecting those particular areas.
I think that's further down.
Chair, it's on item 6.3 at the bottom of page 4.
It's a bit further down, Roger. We'll move down then to page. Where is it?
It's the bottom of page 4, Chair.
Bottom of page 4.
It was a point that Roger Broadbent from the Bird Club mentioned, and he and I haven't had a chance to discuss that further, but I'm very happy to do so. And if Roger can pinpoint to me where the specific areas of concern are, then it's something that together we can raise and discuss with the relevant landowner.
Thank you very much. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
And then I'm moving to page 4, page 5, page 6. A lot of minutes here. Page 7, page 8, and page 9.
Just an update on page 7, Chair. The business engagement. I'm pleased to inform you that the Place brand and the Sense of Place toolkit have now both been signed off, and I'm in the process of constructing on the AONB website a page of resources for local businesses to use. So this will be the toolkits, it'll be the logo, business locators and also a selection of images for them to use in their local products and services. And then I can begin the task of promoting those products to them for them to use.
It might be useful to pass that information to the business officers at the local authorities as well as the county council, obviously, so that they can, because they will have lists of the relevant businesses and can spread the word a bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I am getting some hard copies of the documents printed as well, and I will ensure that I send a folder around to each of the elected members on the Joint Committee.
Right, and then we can pass them on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So that's all the matters arising. Nothing else? So we move on to the financial report, which is the treasurer. The treasurer.
Thank you, Chair. So the report today is just to update the Joint Committee on the current predicted revenue outturn for this financial year, the SDF fund position, the areas of natural beauty projects position, and the areas of natural beauty reserve, and then a final update on the DEFRA funding settlement for next year. So if I can draw your attention to Appendix 1, I'll just share my screen.
Oh, great.
Let me know when you can see that.
Can see that.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, as you can see, our total budget is 199,720. At the moment, our spending commitment to date is 160,791, and our forecast outturn is a break-even position for this year. So I'll just move on to Appendix 2, which is the Sustainable Development Fund. So we've got projects approved of £4,078, and we're forecast to spend all of those by the end of the financial year. We've also transferred admin fees of 1,307 to our areas of natural beauty reserve, and then due to the partial impact of COVID with charities and community group staff and volunteers being furloughed, and due to several expressions of interest that were received that didn't directly relate to our core purpose of conserving and enhancing natural beauty and therefore were ineligible for funding, we've relocated 7,685 of our previous funds across to the areas of natural beauty projects. So that's the update on there. If I just share Appendix 3, which are the AONB projects. So we've got projects approved of 20,839, and it's forecast that those will be spent by the end of the financial year as well. So just moving on to the reserve position. So our reserve is forecast to have a closing position as at the 31st of March of 56,126, and that's after the transfer of the admin fee of £1,307 from the SDF Development Fund. So is everybody happy to note the financial position for this year's current outturn?
Does anybody have any comments or questions on those?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman.
I can't see hands. Oh, I've got one now. Victoria's hand. I can see your hand. Far away.
Thank you, thank you. I just really wanted to say congratulations, really, particularly regarding the fact that we've managed to break even, given the pressures that we've seen over the last 12 months. I think that's absolutely, it's no mean feat, that. I don't quite know how we managed it, but well done, because I think people have had to work extremely hard over the last 12 months. So that's a really good news story, isn't it? I think.
It is. Yeah, absolutely agree. Alan, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted, nothing wrong with the way that's been put forward to us, nice and clear and easy. I just want to ask about this £8,000 for this project RAF Ensford. What was that for? What was that about? For Courgette, right?
Yes, I can answer that, Chair. So RAF Hensford Camp was obviously an important part of the military history of Cannock Chase during the Second World War. And it has a number of interpretation panels on a trail around the camp, and also an accompanying leaflet. And it was felt that the interpretation needed a refresh. So we've commissioned a designer to revamp the presentation, make it more exciting, more engaging, bring it up to date, utilise also the Cannock Chase Place brand style as well. So that's what it relates to. And we've also managed to bring in SAC partnership funding for that, as well as a contribution also from the County Council. So it's a collaboration project, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Chair.
Will that finish before the end of the financial year?
No, with the best will in the world, Chair. I mean, it's starting, but it will carry over into the first few weeks of the new financial year.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Are we now? Do we have to decide? We have to vote on the financial report because it's money. Have we got a proposer? Well, I'll propose it.
I'll second it.
Okay. Take your pick, Ian. You've got Victoria or Alan. Thank you very much. That takes us now to the management plan, which is continuation of the very interesting stuff we looked at last meeting. And Ian, I think you're going to lead us on it.
Yes, sorry, Chair, just before we finish the previous item, I just wonder if it's worth commenting about the DEFRA settlement for 2020-21.
Oh, yes. I thought we didn't know.
Well, we don't know.
There's not much to comment on.
There's not much to say, no. I mean, we're still awaiting an announcement. We had a communication from DEFRA during February saying, please bear with us. We hope to get you an announcement fairly soon. We're still waiting for it. I'm led to believe that the announcement is tied up with a ministerial announcement about the new National Landscape Service. Why the two are intertwined, I don't know, but that's the rumour that's going around, that there'll be a ministerial announcement fairly soon about the new National Landscape Service, and tied in with that will be an announcement of our grant settlement for 20. So it's not 2021, is it? It's 2021-22.
22, yes. But it seems to me that the landscape changes, the changes to the legislation are going to have to go through consultation. It's absolutely illogical that our settlement is sitting waiting so near to the year end. If anybody's speaking to any MPs, it would be very useful. We have raised it, I think, with both Amanda Milling and Theo Clark, but I'm not sure whether they've taken it forward, but it is pretty nonsensical.
Thank you, Chair.
So then we do move on to the management planning, and can you lead us through that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as you know, the AONB management plan sets out our vision, policies and actions to enable us to fulfil our statutory duty to conserve and enhance the natural beauty of the chase. The plans operate on a 5-yearly cycle, and our current plan runs from 2019 to 24. So as we're coming up to the conclusion of the second year of the plan, I thought it was timely just to sit back and take stock of where we're up to in terms of delivering the actions that the plan includes, and report to members how we're getting on. And that's the purpose of this report, Chair. So the management plan includes 35 actions in total, and these are included in an implementation action plan in the back of the management plan. And what I've done, Chair, is I've appended to item number 5 the action plan, using a very simple traffic light system just to set out how we're performing against each of the actions. So the action plan, proposals were split into 2 groups. So there were 15 actions due to start in 2019. And then there were a further 20 actions due to start from 2020 onwards. So in relation to the actions due to start in 2019, of the 15, we've completed or substantially progressed 13 of those. And we've started a further one, and then one action hasn't yet started, and that's the action to create or establish a Cannock Chase Landscape Trust. And really that's kind of on hold. It's on a back burner until we know we've got more certainty about the outcome of the government's response to the recommendations of the Glover Review, and whether there will be implications for AONB resources. And then in relation to the priority actions due to start in 2020, we've completed or substantially progressed 6 of those, and we're progressing partially a further 2. 8 actions have been started and are partially completed, and then 4 actions haven't yet started. And then what I tried to do in the report, Chair, under paragraph 6 on page 15, is just to list some of the outputs and achievements that we've made against each of the themes that are set out in the AONB management plan. I'm not going to go through all of them. It would take too long. There's too many of them. But I hope it gives members an impression of the huge range of work that we've been able to deliver directly as a team, with the support of our local authority partners and other partners, and so on. It's been a huge collaborative effort, and I think we're in a pretty good place going forward. The actions that we haven't done or are in progress with delivering, they are included in the next AONB business plan for 2021 to 2023. So at this stage, I don't think there are any risks of any of the actions that are in the management plan not being able to be delivered. And before I finish, Chair, just wanted to share my screen if I could. Just really to remind members that if they, I hope you can all see that.
Yeah.
If you wish to find out more about what the AONB is doing, please do visit our website. We refreshed it a couple of years ago, if you remember, Chair. We're looking to tweak it again, to make it constantly fresh and updated. So you can find out why Cannock Chase is special. You can read, if you're so interested, about the governance of AONBs, how they operate. You can visit this What We Do page, and you can see more information about all of the various individual projects that we regularly report to members at the Joint Committee. You can get involved. So we've created a new page for farmers and land managers, which will come on under item number 7 on the agenda. This is the section where the resources for local businesses will be going on. And then you can look at our publications, all our leaflets, all our technical documents, and read the management plan and so on and so forth. So I do encourage members to please visit this regularly. We'll try our best to keep it updated. And then alongside this, Chair, I hope people are subscribed to the e-newsletter. And again, we alert people of things that we're doing through that e-newsletter. And we're now approaching 1,200 subscribers to that. So that's a great means of getting information out to people. So thank you, Chair.
Just before I bring anybody else in, can I ask you why we've still got the deer at the top of that?
One moment, Chair. Yes, because the AONB partnership, this is still the logo of the AONB partnership, Chair. The new Cannock Chase Place brand relates to Cannock Chase the place. So it's quite a different thing. So I know that is potentially confusing for partners, but every partner still has their own logo, whether it's the County Council, Forestry England.
Yes.
We as a partnership still have our logo and our brand, but the purpose of the Cannock Chase Place brand is to try to unite under a new brand, a new narrative, new key messages for Cannock Chase the place. So we give the place a greater sense of identity and a greater sense of pride. So that's why this website, and we still use this place brand and this brand and this color palette and so on.
I'll welcome any views. I'm not convinced. The only other point I wanted to say is, can you just make sure everybody knows how to subscribe to the e-news, both here and any messages that we send out?
Yes, certainly, Chair.
And any points or questions on Ian's presentation? And it's fantastic to see how much has been done. It's really amazing. Victoria, your hand's up.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Really, I just wanted to say exactly the same as you said, that I understand that we haven't actioned everything yet, but we're making good progress. So really well done for that. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Just one final question, Ian. How do we take the management plan forward in terms of projects and actions that are taking place? Is that going to be through the business plan, or is that a new updated management plan?
No, it's through the business plan, Chair. So we've just completed, or just come to the end of the first 2-year business plan. So members approved the next 2 years in December. So that is my job description basically for the next 2 years. Then we will have a 1-year management plan, business plan, which will primarily focus on the refresh of the management plan as a whole. So at that point, we will go out to consultation, seek views in terms of what people want to do for the next management plan cycle, which will be from 2025 for the next 5 years thereafter, Chair.
And that'll go out to stakeholders.
Yes.
And the wider community. I think also it's worth saying a thank you to all the task and finish groups who have inspired the work that has gone forward, because it has really worked. And it may be a bit of hard graft being a member of the task and finish group. But first of all, thank you for doing it, because the success is obvious. And also, if there are other people who've got the particular skills and knowledge, it's always worth putting yourself forward for consideration, as it were. And that's out to the wider community as well. Now, this one that's for information, so we don't need to take any action on that. And we move straight on to the arts programme partnership. That's you again, Ian, is it?
No, that's me.
That's Julia.
Landry. I'm the landscape planning officer. So members will recall back in December that we brought a report about the National Arts Strategy that the National Association for AONBs have adopted. And we discussed the fact that we were interested in the potential of taking local arts projects forward in the AONB. And since then, the AONB has been approached by Cannock Chase Local Education Partnership to collaborate on a programme of arts development for young people from Cannock. Cannock Chase Local Education Partnership are working with Arts Connect, who are the bridge organisation for the West Midlands, aiming to improve the quality of arts and cultural engagement for children and young people across the region. So at this point, I thought it would be useful to introduce Louise Rose from Cannock Chase Local Education Partnership, and also Peter Hannah from Arts Connect, who we're hoping to be working with on this very exciting project. So the project that we're hoping to develop is working to shape a new opportunity for young people to have more cultural and arts experiences. And some key themes that we want to talk about is the environment and sustainability. So this gives the AONB an opportunity to include some messages around leaving no trace and protecting wildlife and avoiding wildlife disturbance, understanding the landscape, and responsibility when out and about enjoying Cannock Chase and the nature and the environment that they can experience. So Louise or Hannah, would you like to just explain a little bit about how the project might work and how we can work together to develop this?
Shall I go first, Louise? And just to say, colleagues, my name's Pepita.
Sorry,
name, so
I'm so sorry.
Just to explain Arts Connect's role, I'm the Associate Director of Arts Connect. We're funded by the Arts Council of England, and we cover the whole of the West Midlands. We're tasked to support our local activity groups. So we call them local cultural education partnerships, and Cannock Chase has been going for quite a while now. Obviously, it's been affected in terms of delivery by the pandemic, but it's at the point where it's now picking up activity. It's been there all the time, supporting its members and making sure communication's gone out. So we're coming to the conversation as a co-investor. So we're very keen to support our cultural education partnerships to bring other partners to the table so that we work in partnership and collectively to address some of the issues. So we've actually said straight away that we're putting £25,000 on the table to support the CEP to develop its relationship with local partners. And it seemed to us from the conversation with Julia and Ian that there was a fantastic synergy here around the work that the CEP was doing and some of your ambitions around engaging local communities, engaging families, engaging schools in the environmental and climate issues around, particularly around the Chase, at a point of time where Cannock Chase's profile is going to be incredibly high with the games coming and all the issues that are around that. So this is really about engaging children and young people and their families and their schools in local activism around environmental change and climate issues, which is a perfect agenda, which you know young people are very passionate about. So that's our role as a key strategic partner with yourselves and with other partners. So we've already had conversations with SAC and with Cannock Chase Council as well. So we're bringing people in, and this will 2 to 3 year programme. So it's not just a one-off project. We've also offered Julia and Ian support around writing your own local art strategy. And I know Louise will also support you on this. So the CEP will support you as well as us, Arts Connect, from our regional and national perspective. So that kind of gives you hopefully the context for why we, Arts Connect, are a key partner. And Louise, do you want to talk a little bit more about the kind of project and CEP, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but Cannock Chase has always been sort of bottom of arts engagement across the country. We're sort of in the lowest 20% according to like the Taking Part survey that Arts Council England run. So that's like one of the reasons, isn't it? Arts Council England and Arts Connect identified Cannock Chase as an area to have a cultural education partnership. As like say the neighbour, I know Lichfield haven't. It's probably just more like Tamworth at the moment and Stoke, sort of local ones.
So Louise, can I just interrupt you there? When you say Cannock Chase, you're talking about the local authority?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cannock Chase, LA. Yeah. So we know, say, Stafford hasn't got a CEP. So like those neighbouring local authorities, we are the main one. So obviously with my role at Inspiring Healthy Lifestyles, like as Creative Development Officer, I'm bringing to the chair like also the theatre, the Museum of Cannock Chase as well, and the 15 years of community engagement we've done working across, with schools, health, educational settings, colleges, children's centres. So it's come at a really good time as strategically finally for Cannock Chase to draw this money down and create a really key partnership for the district. So my vice chair is Kerry Hutchings, and she's from Staffordshire Libraries. So she's her role is over the Stocks and Services Manager for Cannock and Burntwood and Rugeley, and obviously the community libraries that sit underneath it. So the libraries played a key role in the partnership. So we've said it's a 2-year programme that we'd now Arts Connect have offered that investment 25k for the programme. Knowing through my work with Inspiring Healthy Lifestyles, I had previously met Ian as well, and knowing about the Arts Council England agenda and AONB for the arts. So it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to see if we can pull these partnerships together. So the idea is, knowing with the District Council has announced a climate emergency and also sort of their environmental priorities as well for the next few years. It just all seems to go hand in hand of us all working together, and obviously with what's gone on with COVID and everyone on the chase, and children and young people understanding that in the next 2 years, how to appreciate it, but also with the Commonwealth Games coming as well, knowing that things are going to be parachuted in and parachuted back out again. So it's keeping that legacy as well for us. So as Pepita said, we are approaching other partners as well, because there's a number of opportunities available. So yeah, we'd just like to say thanks for having us here today. But I don't think I've missed anything there, Pepita. Or...
just to say that we're really excited about the opportunity to work with you as well, and across lots of different sectors, because that's exactly what our cultural education partnership is, bringing people from different sectors together with a common agenda, particularly involving children and young people. I think that's really important to say, that these are the citizens of the future, and that's why we're totally committed to this partnership. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions for either myself, Louise, or Julia.
Silence. Silence. Does this cover the Cannock Chase District Council area or the whole of the Cannock Chase area? Which is partly why I intervened at the beginning.
Yeah, well, it's as far as like the school settings, and if we were to work with the young people, as our role, it would be the local authority schools. But we've, when we have had discussions with Ian and Julia about this, it is obviously Cannock Chase, and various, a number of people can come from different authorities. So that's not saying if we are doing something on the Chase, if it's like a public art sculpture, it might be being co-produced by our young leaders, within the schools in the district, but then it will be rolled out like for other schools and settings to come from Stafford, Lichfield. We won't be exclusive in that respect. I mean, we've also discussed, obviously, digital is a big thing at the moment. And so whatever is created by our children and young people, again, digitally, then that can be rolled out internationally. So that's sort of our view at the moment.
Thank you. Victoria.
Thank you, and thank you for this. I really welcome this project. I think we've been a bit culture light, haven't we, the last 12 months, because we've had nothing really to go and visit, no theatres, no art to go and view, except obviously digitally. So yeah, I'm all for this. Just let me know. I must have missed it in the report. What with the restrictions, and I know that they're lifting and easing shortly. When do you expect to start this rollout?
So we're hoping, Louise can probably add to this as well. So we're hoping that we can get the core group of young people who will be the real local change makers. They'll form a kind of committee of young people of different ages, and we'll get them together at the end of the summer, sort of July, August, so that they can start looking at their terms of reference, start thinking about programming activity and commissioning arts activity from the autumn onwards. I mean, everything is going to have to be subject to whatever the guidance is from government at that time. But I'm hopeful, and Louise will probably add, that we can start doing face-to-face activity between artists, children, young people and their families from the autumn onwards. We work across the West Midlands, and we already, about 50% of schools that we work with are already having artists in planned for the summer term, particularly summer 2. I think people are desperate to do exciting things face to face, and both children, teachers and adults can't wait to do that. So there's a kind of real thirst. There's some schools that are more nervous, and totally understand that, but there is this energy that we must go back to doing really exciting face to face things. So I don't know, Louise, if you wanted to add that from a very local perspective.
I was just going to say, we do have like partnership meetings, so schools do attend those, and we have got one in next week actually. So again, we can have those conversations with the schools and the teachers, you know, at that time of how, you know, what they're planning. For example, I've got another project running about town centre regeneration that potentially would like the children to be accessing empty premises in the town centres, but again, it's, you know, blooming COVID and restrictions. So, but, you know, we have got those relationships and those partnerships to, you know, speak, to discuss and plan accordingly. So, because it, you know, we say Cannock Chase, we're very good at the place-based working and the partnerships. So we have got good relationships to, you know, pick up that phone and find things out.
Thank you. Jeff, I've got your hand up.
Hi, thanks. Yes, from Staffordshire Wildlife Trust's point of view, I know my colleagues in our people engagement team are planning similar activities. So I'm just wondering whether there's any opportunity to become or to contribute to the project.
Yeah, we've hosted actually one of our CPD sessions, wasn't it, Peter, actually at Wolseley Bridge. So there's Alexis Johnson, I know, is a partner and comes to the meetings when she can. So obviously, like with the last 12 months, it's all gone a bit, But so yeah, we link in like through Inspiring Healthy Lifestyles as well with the Wolseley Bridge. So yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Mary Cope has youngsters and the Scout camp and so on. So there's an awful lot of opportunity to create a network, isn't there, of other organisations who are focusing on young people on the chase.
And I was just going to say, I noticed about Dark Skies project as well, and potentially that is something we would brief the young people with. So, you know, that's one of your priorities I've seen. So you could have a group of young people. I'm working on the event, whether it's, you know, next year, developing online tools, resources, you know, engaging with the families. So it's things like that that you'd get the support with, you know, working with professional artists to develop that quality and engagement as well. So, you know, I can see there's loads of avenues.
Well done. Next, well, we shall look forward to you coming back in 6 months or so to tell us how you're progressing. Thank you. That would be great.
Thank you.
Anybody? No more questions? Can we move on?
Chair, we need to to have a vote to make a decision as to whether.
Right. So we do.
So the
actually, I've got it down for info.
The proposal is that the AONB commits £5,000 of core funding in the year 2021 and a further £5,000 in the year 2022. So I'd be grateful if, you know, we're recommending that we get involved in this project, and I'd be grateful if you would, the committee would vote on whether we can allocate resources to enable delivery.
Do we have a proposer? Anybody against?
I'd like to propose, please.
Thanks, Len.
I'll second it, Chair.
Alan, you'll second, and I agree. So we passed that, and are very pleased to make that contribution. And you know, good luck with it, and let's see it grow and expand. It'll be wonderful. Thank you very much indeed.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks very much,
care.
Peter and Louise, for coming along and explaining a little bit more about it. Thank you very much, ladies.
Yes. Yeah, well done. Thank you very much. We're now moving into farming in protected landscapes, the government's reinvention of funding for farmers. And I know, is Mary still here?
Yes, she's here, Chair.
Are you there, Mary? We will almost certainly need your contribution, I'm sure. Who's going to introduce it?
That's me, Chair.
Ian, thank you very much.
So members will remember that in December, I presented an item about the additional funding that all of the protected landscapes had received from DEFRA to advocate to farmers that the changes that were coming to UK agriculture, and in particular the new scheme called Environmental Land Management and the principle of paying farmers public money for delivering public environmental goods. That was a short-term project, and it's still going on. It started in December, and it runs until the end of January. So that money has allowed us to appoint a consultancy called Arbor Vitae and also DGM Consulting. And the purpose of that work is to improve our knowledge and understanding about farming and farmers on and around Cannock Chase. Secondly, to engage with those farmers, to make them aware of the changes that are coming, to share information and to seek their views about the changes and what they feel about them and their state of preparedness for them. So that's due to finish at the end of this month. So we've been engaging about 100 public and private farmers and land managers on the Chase and within a 1 kilometre boundary around the Chase. And hot on the heels of that funding, if you remember, in December, the government also announced a new programme for farmers and land managers in protected landscapes in England that would be delivered by the national parks and by the AONBs. And that programme is called Farming in Protected Landscapes. And I'd hoped that by now we would have had the details of this programme and I could have brought them to the meeting. Unfortunately, it's been delayed and still we haven't had any announcement about the programme or what it entails. But nevertheless, rather than just completely overlooking the programme, I thought it was important to raise this with members because the programme could be transformative for the AONB in terms of what we do. So, and I've tried to explain in the rest of the paper about the programme. So in terms of what we do know about it, Chair, if I could just briefly summarise it. So the allocation that's been given to this programme is about £50 million, just over. So £22 million in the first financial year from April, followed by £15 million in the subsequent 2 financial years. In terms of how that money will be spent, when the programme was announced, it was said that the money would be delivered across 2 elements. And I've set those out in paragraph 12 on page 33. So the first element would be given to farmers for projects for environmental goods, so supporting them for things like restoring peat, planting woodlands, hay meadow management and so on, as well as other things like capturing carbon, business planning and skills development. And then there would be a Part B stream, which would support farmers for things like visitor infrastructure, as well as for strengthening public engagement with landscapes. And that is pretty much as the government has released in relation to the detail of the programme. Nevertheless, as you can imagine, there's been quite a bit of conversation within the AONB family in terms of what this might look like and how it would work. It's clear that all AONB teams would need additional staff capacity to be able to run this programme. And as far as we know, that would be eligible expenditure under the new budgets. So I've tried to set out in paragraph 15, Chair, the important factors that we will need to look at very quickly once the detail is given to us by DEFRA. So each AONB, each national park will be allocated a budget. The value of that budget we don't yet know, and we don't know how it will be allocated between the different protected landscapes. We're assuming that the budget will be split between those two strands I mentioned, elements A and elements B of the programme. The proportions we don't yet know. Is that going to be decided by DEFRA? Is it going to be decided locally by us? Again, we don't know. There are rumours that DEFRA would want the budget front-loaded in the first of the 3 years. Now that would create real challenges because it's not been announced yet. If it's due to start from April the 1st, with the best will in the world, we're not going to have a system up and running to be able to deliver it and liaise with farmers for several months. So that would be a real challenge to deliver a front-loaded budget. And then if you think it through, Chair, there are lots of decisions in terms of how the programme would be run with farmers and landowners. So who would be eligible? Would it only be eligible for farmers, other land managers, public, private? What would the priorities be? What criteria would we use for deciding where the money would be delivered? There is talk that there would be panels set up locally within each protected landscape to assess the applications that come in. How long would the grant be given for? What conditions would be attached? And so on. How would the new programme dovetail with the existing agri-environment schemes that farmers and land managers can already apply for example, countryside stewardship? How would the payments be made? How would it be monitored? So there's an awful lot of detail that we just haven't received information about at the moment, Chair. In terms of the implications, I used the word transformative earlier, and I think it truly would be. I mean, the AONB team has not had this kind of relationship with farmers and land managers ever on Cannock Chase. I mean, we've dabbled a bit. We've had some small-scale liaison about 15 years ago, but this is an entirely new work area for us, and we would have to learn how to become the trusted partner with farmers and land managers through this scheme. It has the potential to significantly raise the AONB's profile with rural communities. It would support farming, it would support jobs in the rural economy, and obviously it has the potential to deliver environmental and health and well-being outcomes. So huge opportunities, but obviously it comes with a number of challenges which I've set out in paragraph 18, Chair. It's an entirely new work area for us. We'll have to get up to speed really quickly. We haven't had a relationship with farmers and land managers, and we'll have to build that relationship, build that trust. And inevitably, with a new programme comes teething problems in terms of how it operates, and we'd have to overcome those. But again, because AONB partnerships are collaborations, we have a considerable breadth of expertise and knowledge in relation to farming within the partners. So I think we would be well placed to make this a success. So I'm sorry that I can't give members more information at this stage, Chair, but I just wanted you all to be prepared that this is coming, so that when it does arrive, you're fully aware of it and what its implications will be. Thank you, Chair.
Well done. Mary, do you want to come in?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, good. I'm not very familiar with Teams. So yeah, I think Ian's done a very good sort of summing up of the challenges and things that and the potential for sort of good work to come out of this. I would say that equally there is no information coming through to farmers. So I think, you know, you're not the only people in the dark with what schemes might be coming forward. And I think that from a farming point of view, farmers will probably be glad of somebody out there sort of to work alongside. So I think that relationships will be sort of drawn up between farmers and the AONB. I hope that it's not going to be seen as, you know, another government or umbrella organisation so much as a partner. So yeah, I think there's lots of potential, but there's still no detail, and until there's detail, it's very hard for farmers and landowners to sort of do any business planning and come forward with any sort of input.
Thanks, that's really helpful. And our lesson at the moment is wait and see, isn't it? We'll bring it back in July to the agenda, assuming something's happened. And then we need to think how we, as a group, address a response to DEFRA, perhaps with the National Association and with the cooperation of NFU, CLA and so on.
I think Sarah has a hand up, Chair.
So you have, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to say that if DEFRA do come back with an offer around this, my guess is they will want a quite rapid response.
Right.
So I'm not sure that we will have the luxury of waiting to the next joint committee meeting before considering it. Obviously, we don't know quite when we're going to get this information, but if the intention was for the scheme to start in April or as soon as possible in the new financial year, then we may well get some information that we need to kind of respond on fairly rapidly. So I just wonder whether it's worth the committee thinking about how it would sort of respond to that request, and whether we need to sort of delegate that decision making, or whether we will need to do something by correspondence. It's quite a big topic. It's, you know, it has quite big implications for the team. It may be that we need to call a sort of extraordinary meeting to discuss it, but I just wonder whether it's worth to sort of help and support Ian and the team having some kind of thought in place for how we will kind of respond to that.
Thanks, Sarah. That's a really good point. Any suggestions and thoughts on that? I mean, it is hugely important, not least because of the financial implications for this AONB. Alan.
Yes, yeah. What Sarah just said, I think we ought to take on board. We may need to have an extraordinary meeting, extremely sharp, and support our officers in this, because this is an important thing to the AONB and landowners and farmers within the AONB. So we need to get this right as quick as we can. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And are we agreed on that?
Yeah.
Len?
So I just wonder if at some stage we need a workshop on this.
We certainly will. I think there's a lot that we're going to need to do on it, and perhaps Ian and Mary together could give us a bit of direction on how best to make it, because it's the close contact and exchange with the farmers and landowners that's going to be so important in all of this. Can I just add a little amusing little ditty about this? So some people will know that for many years I was the regional director of the CLA, so I understand a bit about farming and landowning, and a very forward-thinking landowner, a man called Peter Gifford, who Len will know about, in South Staffordshire, came up with a wonderful suggestion. This was at least 25 years ago, and he called it environmental land management. And what he put forward was basically what became countryside stewardship. The government hated the idea of elms because the CLA had invented it, and that smacked of wicked landowners. So they called it countryside stewardship, and it makes me smile that 25, 30 years on, the government's come up with this wonderful new scheme called environmental land management that was actually invented in Staffordshire. And I can tell you that that is definite fact. So anyway, we agree with all that. You happy with that, Ian? The way we're proposing to go forward, does that help or not help?
Yeah, it does. It does, Chair. I just apologise that I've got nothing no more detail to share with you. It is frustrating for us and for all concerned. I take Len's point. It would be good to have a workshop as and when we have something to share. In relation to the CLA and the NFU, I mean, both organisations, I think, are going to be very important going forward. And we have spoken to Staffordshire CLA and Staffordshire NFU during the current advocacy work that we've been doing with the consultants. So they're prepped and ready as well. So all to the good, I think.
And anything I can do, I'll be delighted. I still have some reasonable contacts with both.
Thank you.
Can we move on now? No more points on that. And that's, it's going to be transformative, I think. We move to planning update, and that is from
Julia, from me.
It's from Julia,
yeah.
And it's for information, Julia, I think.
It is for information, yes. Really just a quick review of the planning responses and associated projects that I've been dealing with. So I've reviewed approximately 25 planning applications. 2 were for amended applications. 18 didn't really need a full response, as there were no particular concerns to raise, and some of them were quite substantial. And so although it doesn't sound as though that's an awful lot to review in detail, one of those obviously is the ongoing consultation work that's going in association with the Commonwealth Games. And there have also been a couple of pre-application discussions that I've been involved with, which have been quite long, quite drawn out. And I think really the thing to take from this is that the amount of the benefit that's coming to the AONB from these responses, and how applicants are making changes and enhancing the designs that are being put forward for approval, as the process of sort of negotiation goes on, in terms of my responses, them coming back, making amendments, and we're reaching a point where the proposals are acceptable and potentially enhancing the AONB in some way. So yes, coming out of it, I feel that there is an enhancement in the level of design on schemes that are being put forward. I also dealt with a felling licence application for the Forestry Commission, where we've put forward proposals for some habitat enhancements on the edges of glades and rides. So again, more enhancement coming through responses that we're making. So very briefly then, a little bit of an update on High Speed 2. Members will be aware, no doubt, from other sources that HS2 Phase 2A gained royal assent on the 11th of February. And so one of the 2 conditions attached to the release of the group's Environmental Enhancement Fund has been met. So the group are currently finalising the Environmental Enhancement Plan to put forward to the Secretary of State, and that work is ongoing through the consultant. We've also been consulted on some early environmental works and have fed back to HS2 with comments on those. following on from Royal Assent, no doubt we're going to get more consultation now on the design work for the project as a whole. And finally, just to update members on the Dark Skies project proposal, members will recall that we discussed this in December, and the CPRE Stark Out took place in February. And due to the national lockdown, of course, by necessity, that was home-based. And at the moment, I've not had feedback from CPRE nationally as to the local response, but this was widely publicised by CPRE and other partners. We worked through Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, and it was on the various local authority websites as well. So hopefully there will have been some good participation, because no doubt people were looking for an exciting activity to do during lockdown. And members will recall that we wanted to commission a consultant to carry out a more methodical survey across the AONB of Dark Skies. But because of lockdown, we felt that actually we were no longer able to do this. And so we've instead, having consulted with expert Bob Misen, we purchased 6 sky quality meters. And with the help of volunteers in partner organisations, we've been actually carrying out this survey this week. This week was the new moon, and so there's no moon in the sky, and so you get the best readings, the darkest readings, without any light from the moon. And various partners have been out there with meters. I've been out there, and I'm collating those results. Not quite got them all in yet, but hopefully we'll have something more methodical to report back on later in the year.
Thank
so
you,
really,
Julie.
it's really, as you said, Chair, just all of those items for information.
Has anybody got comments on any of them? I've let them run through because nobody intervened, but do you have any particular comments on any of the points Julia's so very clearly set out? No? Thank you very much, Julia. It's really helpful. And again, it looks like we've got follow-up. We've got ongoing follow-up with HS2, but it'll be very interesting to see what the Dark Skies results tell us.
Thank you.
And the next one is the heritage strategy. And
right.
Ian, you're introducing that. We've got Janine, I think. Is Janine here?
Well, I was going to say, Chair, Janine hasn't arrived in the meeting yet, so I'm rather stumped if she doesn't arrive, because she was going to present her draft strategy. Could we take item 10, Chair, and hope that Janine arrives in the meantime?
The item 10 is I'm moving down. The protocol for public questions.
Yeah, so that is me, Chair. So
that's you, isn't it?
Yeah. So
this is really to look at a change in the way we provide opportunities for the public to engage with the partnership and the joint committee.
That's correct, Chair. So in the December meeting of the joint committee, members resolved 3 things, and that's set out in paragraph 2. Oh, good. Here's Janine. That's a relief.
We'll just continue with this one anyway.
Super.
Welcome, Janine. We're just going to deal with another item and then bring you in.
Hello. Yes.
So yes, members resolved 3 things: that public speaking at meetings of the committee would be permitted, that we would agree a procedure for public speaking at meetings, and then accordingly the standing orders to the partnership agreement 2016 would be amended. So in Appendix 1 of this paper, Chair, I set out a proposed protocol for your consideration in relation to public question time during joint committee meetings. So it provides a little bit of introduction about meetings of the joint committee and so on and so forth. It then sets out who can speak. So obviously any member of the public can come along and speak at the meetings. It suggests a time in the agenda when we would allow speaking to take place. And I'm proposing that that would be after we've dealt with apologies and we've signed the minutes of the last meeting and so on. And then a public question would relate to the business of the Joint Committee and the statutory purpose of the AONB. So that would keep the focus of questions to our business. That we would limit the period for public questions to no more than 15 minutes. In terms of the process for notifying an intention to speak, I'm suggesting that members of the public wanting to speak would inform the team by email 3 working days before the meeting. And then we would consider the question and again reject it if it wasn't related to the business of the Joint Committee, and so forth. And that at any one meeting, no person may submit more than 1 question. And then in terms of how long each speaker would have, the questioner would speak for up to 2 minutes. If the questioner is not able to ask the question themselves, then the chair could put the question on their behalf. Then in relation to responses to questions, I'm proposing that the answer would take the form of either a direct oral answer, or where we can't give an oral answer, then I would later provide a written response. And then the last part of the protocol, Chair, deals with the conduct of speakers during the meeting, and that the Chair has the last matter on any matters in relation to it. So that's the proposed protocol, Chair. I've looked at a number of different protocols that committees operate. I think it's broadly consistent with various protocols for public questions, and members will recognise this. So that's the proposal, and I welcome any comments, Chair.
I come in, please. Can I come in, Chair, please?
You're on mute, Francis.
Sorry, I've got Len there and Victoria. So Len?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Ian, I'm interested in the questions and being sent to you 3 days prior to the meeting. I think it's very important that if people want to ask questions at the meeting, you should have sight of that question before the meeting. Could you ask for that, please?
Yeah. So are you saying that the protocol doesn't make that explicit enough then?
I don't think it does.
Right.
I think people need to realise that they need to form a question and send that question to you in order that you can find out exactly what's needed.
Okay, so it needs something adding along the lines of that questions that haven't been submitted in advance won't be allowed to be asked at the meeting. Sure.
That would be essential, because otherwise you don't know whether it's a valid question or not.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering whether 3 days is actually sufficient.
No. 7 days.
I think so. 5 or 7 working days might be more helpful to you, given that you might be snowed under with something else at the time. Sorry, I shouldn't have to be in it. Victoria. And then Alan.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with Len's comments there. I think we really leave ourselves wide open. And the other thing I'd say at the bottom, with regards to the conduct of the speakers must conduct themselves or they'll be asked to leave the meeting. I wonder if we might need to go one further and say that we will actually remove them from the meeting. If that isn't put into the wording, I worry that people will be able to stay in when really we want to be able to have the power to actually remove them from the meeting. Yes. I don't know what others' thoughts are.
Thank you. I agree.
I agree.
Alan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with both comments that's been said, especially Len's. I do believe that Ian and Lee need more time, which you said yourself, Chair, probably 7 days, because some of these questions, especially if the several comes in, he's going to have to work on several questions. The main small thought behind it was, although he said only two minutes to put their question over at the meeting, was how many members of the public do we allow questions at each meeting? 5, 10, 20?
It's 15 minutes. You've just got 15 minutes for all the questions.
Okay, so it's limited.
So once you've run out of time, everything else will have to be answered in writing later on.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I wanted to make a comment. Just make sure.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you coming back, Len, or is that your hand still up from before? Well done. Now we're asked to approve this, Ian, as a new protocol.
Well, we have some suggested amendments then, Chair. Would you like to approve it with those amendments, or would you like for me to circulate a revised version to members outside of the meeting for then approval by email? What
would you prefer? Perhaps the second, just because it's that important, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. I'll do that straight after the meeting, Chair.
Thank you. So the first part, the protocol set out in Appendix 1 is adopted, that the standing orders are amended. So we'll need to agree to, so those will have to come back anyway.
Yeah.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's agreed. And we're now moving back to Janine. And welcome, Janine.
I was just going to introduce the paper, if I may, Chair. Just
okay.
Sorry, Janine. To interrupt.
You turn up and then he doesn't allow you to speak.
Yes, it's just to say a few words, just to provide context for members for this strategy. So referring back to the management plan again, which is basically my Bible in terms of what I have to do, and it guides and directs me every day. Within that management plan, we have two objectives in relation to the historic environment. So one is to conserve the Chase's rich historic environments, and then the second is to connect communities with the Chase's history and culture. And our knowledge and understanding of the historic environment on Cannock Chase has improved considerably in recent years. So first of all, we had the Chase Through Time project, and then that was followed last year by an assessment of the significance of the heritage assets on Cannock Chase. And it identified various sites that required conservation management, as well as those that would be suitable for increased access and interpretation. So those two pieces of work, Chase Through Time and then last year's assessment, they've laid the foundation for the preparation of the strategy that Janine is undertaking for us. And we're looking for a strategy that does several things. So it's a big ask for Janine, as she knows. So we're asking her to come up with a strategy that encourages the responsible care of the historic environment on Cannock Chase, that tells its story, because there is a fascinating story about Cannock Chase's historic environment, so that it tells its story in exciting and innovative ways, that it improves the experience for visitors who come on the Chase, and that lastly, that it also inspires local people and partners and helps to generate a greater sense of pride. So that's all I wanted to say by introduction. So I'll stop there and let you carry on, Janine.
Thanks, Ian. Hi, everybody. Sorry if I was a little bit late to the meeting. I had a previous meeting that I had to attend. I'm just going to try and share. I've got a few slides. I've just perhaps you could just tell me if you can see them. It's always a little bit confusing, isn't it? Okay, well, I've got a few slides. I'm just going to talk through the first couple actually just go back over really some of what Ian's just said. So I'll just run quickly over them and then just talk you through what we've been doing and where we're up to with the strategy. This is just a little introductory slide. This is it's been myself and Matt Williams have been working on this strategy. We've got a small heritage partnership called Fern Heritage in Archaeology. And we have been commissioned to produce this strategy, and we've been working to a sort of deadline at the end of March. So we are coming towards the end of it. We've got a draft of sorts, and it's out for comment. And I suppose we're going to sort of just over the next couple of weeks work on getting it into a kind of shape that everybody's happy with. Ian has just really sort of given you a bit of a background in terms of why the strategy has come about. I think really we're sort of looking at a whole load of new knowledge which has come out of these recent projects, all these new features that have been identified, some of which, you know, really significant features that have been flagged up, and this more recent piece of work that's sort of looked at the significance of them. But I think it's just really important to kind of keep in mind as well that you know, the heritage of Cannock Chase is not sort of just this pretty set of archaeological features in this nice landscape. It's really it's the whole landscape itself. It's the dynamic shifting landscape that contains all this evidence of man's interaction with the landscape, all kind of leading up to how it looks today. And it's a bit messy, you know, it's got issues, it's all linked in with the memories of the people who live near the chase, and the ever increasing local populations, some of whom access the chase so often that they're having a negative impact on it, and some of whom really struggle to get out onto the chase. And I think it's about their memories and their sense of ownership as well. So that's what we've really been trying to address as well as all this kind of tangible new evidence. It's all those intangible things as well that go along with it. So we've been trying to look at that too in the context of the strategy. And as Ian says, we're really working towards those two key policies in the management plan, which is looking at what I've just said, really sort of looking at those local communities and visitors and how they kind of engage with the heritage, as well as how we manage it, how the historic environment is managed. I'm going the wrong way there. So that was the brief really, and that's really what we're working towards, sort of encouraging the responsible care of the historic environment, and how can we do that? How can we engage people with it to the extent that they will feel that sense of ownership? And we've sort of set out a whole number of principles on the right there in terms of what we're working towards. So just to quickly whiz over what we've been doing and how we've been working on it. We've carried out the background research. We've done some familiarisation work. We've spoken to lots of people. We did hold back in January, and I think quite a few people perhaps on this call maybe came along to some of the virtual workshops we held in January, just really trying to tease out from other people what their priorities around the heritage and the chase are, and we've held a series of follow-up calls leading on from things that came up in those discussions, and then we've really been sort of drafting out the strategy. And like I say, we're at a situation now where there is a draft available, and we just need to work on sort of a bit of toing and froing, getting some of the main objectives and points finalised in that document. So that's where we're up to at the moment. And then I'm just going to talk really quickly through the main components of the strategy. I'm not going to go into lots of detail. Obviously, there will be a draft available quite soon. The overarching vision of the document has been produced, and really it just very much lines up with those two key policies in the management plan that we are looking at managing in maintaining the heritage assets in the best possible condition, and at the same time as, you know, making the heritage of the chase come alive, and helping those local communities feel connected to it and proud of it. So we set out the vision in the document, and then the strategy really splits then into two. We're sort of looking at those two main components, really. One being this kind of interpretation and access, and looking at how we can interpret the heritage assets on the one hand, and how people can engage with them, and then on the other hand, how can we ensure that they're kept in the best possible condition, and how do the two interlink as well. So they're the two main components of the strategy. And then what we've produced at this stage is, rather than a kind of detailed implementation plan, we've produced a sort of portfolio of projects, all of which could work towards delivering on the objectives and the recommendations in the strategy. And that's really sort of based around lining things up with funding options and what's out there in terms of funding, and trying to enable a sort of flexible approach to sort of, if key funding streams do come up, then there are some projects there that are ready to go, that already are integrated with this strategy, and would be able to deliver on some of the key recommendations in there. So I'm just going to look really quickly at each of the little components. For the interpretation section, we're very much focused on looking at audience, looking at who uses the site at the moment, but also, you know, who doesn't use the site, and how can we be attracting new audiences onto Cannock Chase and into engaging with the heritage. And we sort of look at the different types of media and different types of interpretation that suit the different audiences, really. And, you know, do we need to start looking at some different means? Do we need to use more digital technologies? Do we need to look at art a bit more, and which aspects of the audiences appear, you know, respond best to different types of media? And then we also look at the themes and the messaging. I mean, a key part of interpretation is having a really succinct aim and a really succinct message that you're trying to get across. So that's what we really have tried to do in the strategy, is kind of crystallise some of the messages around what the heritage of the chase is and why that's relevant to people's lives today. This is a slide just pulling out a few of the different suggestions, or the different aspects that we're exploring in terms of using a bit more digital technology, different ways of drawing people in, or just whether it's just using art within the landscape equally. And so we just look at some of these examples within the strategy as case studies, really, but using them as you know, sort of suggestions as to what might work where on the chase. And then I think a lot of the work we did around the in the stakeholder workshops was looking at themes and concepts, and we really took away a lot from the different opinions different groups had and different people had around what the key messages of around the heritage of the Cannock Chase were. And I think one of the overarching things that I took away from it all was this concept of the kind of give and take on Cannock Chase between humans and between nature, and that interplay between the natural and the cultural environments. And we talked a lot around how we could sort of develop the messages around that. And eventually we sort of decided to put that as an overarching concept, because I think it's really one of the most important aspects, really, is that, you know, the chase looks the way it does today because of how generations of humans have kind of used it and exploited it, but equally it's been exploited in that way because of its natural resources and what it has to offer. So we sort of came up with the idea of this as an overarching concept, and then we've broken down some more detailed themes around the around the heritage. I have produced a couple of slides just with them on. They're really wordy, so I'm not going to go through them in much detail. I just wanted to flag them up really, so people had an idea of what we were looking at really in terms of the main themes that we've picked out, which very much came out of the strategy, the stakeholder workshops rather, in terms of what people see as the most important aspects. So we started with the chase at war, which seems the kind of obvious big one, and we know particularly from even more from the more recent work that's been done that, you know, the First World War landscape, particularly of Cannock Chase, is one of the best preserved in the country, and it is of national significance. But despite that, you know, the remains are often hidden across the landscape, and we really felt that the feedback was that there's a huge public interest in this, and people do feel a sense of connection with that military past of the chase. So we've included that as theme 1, and then what we've done for each theme is we've set out a couple of key messages that goes with the theme, and then a list of resources and sites and key areas where that theme might well be demonstrated. So we're not going to go through those in much detail now, but just to give you a sense of what's in the document. The second theme we came up with was home is where the heath is. And what we were trying to do all through the development of the themes really was to come up with things that would resonate with people, that people actually can relate to from themselves, from their own lives, and not just kind of, you know, come and look at this nice little bit of archaeology or whatever. You know, what does it actually mean? How do we associate with that? How do we connect with that? So the home theme was around the idea that, you know, the Cannock Chase has been home to all sorts of different people through time, through the rich, the working, the marginalised, even down to sort of prisoners and refugees, and how the chase has given them a sense of belonging and place. But it also kind of, the theme opens up the possibility of exploring around sort of early prehistoric settlers, looking at how people use it today, how people live there today, and how relevant it is to people's lives today. So again, we've set out some key messages, but the big meaty themes that could be explored quite a lot more, I think they're the third we've come up with as work and leisure, and this one is looking at, again, how the chase has been used by people through time for, well, two opposing things really, for subsistence and for recreation. And again, we thought this was really, you know, it opens up the possibilities of exploring the ways the chase has been used in the past, but it also makes it really relevant to today, and hopefully will encourage a bit of that sort of responsible recreation, perhaps, of the chase. So look at it, you know, from when it was used for the sport of kings as a medieval deer park to some of these kind of lavish parkland landscapes, looking at just people of all sections of society, really, small scale mining to the huge collieries of the 20th century. So that was what we were thinking around with that theme, and again, hopefully it's something that people can really relate to, and relate to specifically with regards to the chase as well. And the final theme is connections and divisions, and again, it's something that came up a lot in the stakeholder workshops. People really are interested in sort of how people got across the chase, those routeways, those trackways across, and how it's kind of connected people, but also divided people. And this, again, division of the land is something that has always caused perhaps conflict and tension in the past. It's something that kind of, you know, has a big impact on landscape. So it seemed like a really relevant theme again, but also that with that idea of connections on the chase to the wider world, and putting Cannock Chase in its context of what's going on elsewhere, whether that be soldiers who are trained on the chase going off to fight elsewhere, to sort of how the industry on the chase has sort of expanded into the wider world as well. And again, we will set out a series of messages around that, and some ideas of resources and sites that might be relevant for those themes. So they were the main 4 themes that I kind of wanted to just highlight here. And that really forms the bulk of the interpretation section, looks at some ideas around how those themes could be used and who might want to use them. The next section of the strategy, I suppose, is the conservation framework. And in this section, I'm not going to go through it in lots of detail. We've sort of taken a traditional kind of conservation management approach, but looked at how we can sort of turn that around a bit, bring communities and volunteers and a bit more public interaction into that conservation approach, but also how that fits in with other land management that's going on at the same time on the Chase. So we've sort of proposed a model which to a great extent is already has been started on the Chase in terms of using volunteers and using members of the public to monitor and to keep an eye on the condition, and just try to encourage people to look after the Chase by sort of involving them and giving them a bit of a sense of ownership. So we've got some detail in there and some guidelines and things around that in the conservation framework section. And then some of the earlier pieces of work have pulled out some of the priority sites, which again we look at, and these might be sites that are more significant or more complex or more vulnerable that may potentially need a bit more detailed management. So we've done some templates around what those management plans might look like. And then for both sections, we've gone through, pulled out a list of strategic objectives and then followed them up with some recommendations of how these objectives might be achieved. I haven't listed all the objectives here. I think it's a bit too much information overload on a slide, so I've just tried to pull out some of the main themes of the objectives, and really it goes back to what we thought at the beginning. Really, I mean, we're going to be looking at the importance of integrating the cultural and natural environments together, and how the best way of managing the landscapes is by joined up management, working in partnership, but also another thing that really came through is this sort of, you know, the more we involve the public and the volunteers and work with new people, then hopefully we can encourage this kind of responsible care of the Chase. So there's some of the main themes just on this slide that are going to be coming out in the strategic objectives, which hopefully we are now we've drafted and will be sort of toing and froing before we come up with the final versions that we've all agreed on. But again, they're definitely going to be looking at sort of how we can work with new audiences that we've defined, and how we can sort of use new technologies, perhaps using art in the landscape to kind of engage with these new audiences. So that's the sort of big section at the end, which hopefully will be finalised over the next couple of weeks. And then the final section of the strategy looks a little bit like this at the moment. This is just a selection of some of the pages of the project portfolio that we've prepared to sit at the back of the strategy, which again is sort of, rather than a detailed implementation plan, it's providing a suite of projects which and trying to line them up with the objectives and the things that we've set out in the strategy, but also more importantly, trying to line them up with funding that might be available, and how to kind of, you know, sort of be fleet of foot really if funding streams do come available, you know, what would be a suitable project to help achieve some of the objectives that we've set out in the strategy. And that's it really. I mean, that's a very brief overview of a sort of what the document's looking like at the moment. I suppose my big takeaways from the project really were that we do need to be working really closely. The historic environment needs to work, especially now when there's so much focus on the natural environment, so much focus on access to green space, on biodiversity loss. You know, how can the historic environment and the natural environment work really closely together, to be thinking about place as a whole, and to be thinking about, you know, just the landscape as holistically, and how can we kind of put in place that sort of the partnerships and the methods of working that will help us achieve that. I think that's one of the key things that's important moving forward, and I think the funding streams that are available at the moment reflect that as well, and it's going to be really important to ensure that integration takes place where as much as possible. That's pretty much, I think, sharing my screen, all I was going to say at the moment. I don't know if anybody's got questions or anything specifically. Obviously, there is a draft of the document at the moment, and it should be finalised. I don't know.
Thank you, Janine. That's very, very helpful. It'll be very interesting to see the final document, and then see what the projects are, because the writing was all too small to actually see what those projects were likely to be. The other part of it for me is the involvement of volunteers, which is something so important to the chase. So there's going to be a lot to chew on. Alan, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Same as you, a little bit small, but I tried to read the best I could. But I did like the one idea that possibly trainees, apprentices may be taken on. I did like that, especially in our youth, about all the Staffordshire being that many out of work. And, you know, if we train our young ones on this, it can only be helpful for the future, for the chase.
I agree. I think it's a really important one, really, and I think there is funding at the moment as well, and that's something that people are really interested in, sort of kick-starting kind of the youth unemployment particularly, so it could be really important.
Victoria.
Thank you, Chairman, and Ginny, thank you very much for such a great presentation. I did have to zoom in with my magnifier at some of the slides, but
sorry, they were purposefully small, so they give you a snapshot of what was there. I didn't want you to have to read the whole thing on the screen.
I think for me, you know, this is everything that resonates, everything that I like about the chase and the history side of things. It's excellent. I'm really delighted with it. But I think more than anything else, I think it's already just been said that sort of engagement with local people is so important, because they do feel that this chase belongs to them and belongs to, you know, previous generations. So the voluntary aspect of things, I really want to, you know, find out a little bit more about as time goes on, because I think we really need to get that level of engagement locally, so people feel that they're contributing to what's happening on their chase, as it were. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Anybody else?
Yes, please.
Who am I looking at?
You're looking at Len.
Oh, Len, sorry, I can't find you.
That's fine, I'm here. Janine, thank you very much for that. In my role as Cabinet member at South Staffs, I'm very involved in climate change. It's part of my portfolio. Are you going to build a strategy into your work that you're doing at the moment?
I think climate change is a big thing that runs through all of it. I haven't included it as a sort of separate component of the strategy, but it focuses in on the conservation side, really, and it's just what are the implications, the issues around the conservation of the heritage assets and the monuments, and how does climate change affect them. So yes, it's in there, perhaps not as an individual thing, and I think...
Could you highlight them, please?
Sure.
I think when you think about the integration with the conservation plan and so on, it will come through the whole. It'll come through into the business plan, won't it, as well? So, as Len said, it's hugely important to weave it through the whole of our document. Anybody else? Ian, we are invited to make any comments and note progress. What we're going to need, Janine, is to see the final document. Is there a timetable to this, Ian? Do we need to bring it to July meeting, or do we need to look at it and approve it all sooner than that somehow?
Well, Janine's contract is due to be completed by the end of March.
So we'll have the final strategy then.
So it's a case of whether you want it. I mean, obviously,
we don't need to sign it off or anything because it is Janine's strategy, presumably, and therefore it could come back to the July meeting. Because it's got to go into the business plan, hasn't it? And if there's anything that we hate in it, we need an opportunity to say, thank you, Janine, we don't like what you've written on that paragraph 4.7 or whatever it may be. I'm assuming that what we've seen is what we get, but we haven't got the intricate detail.
No. Yes, I mean, that's the way forward then. I mean, we need to finish off the draft as we can with Janine over the next few weeks, and then bring a final version to members in July. Is that what you're proposing, Chair?
That's what I'm thinking. It seems sensible because then it becomes part of, then it goes forward into the business plan, doesn't it, with the project implementation and all those things. So it seems to me, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but it seems to me that that would be a perfectly reasonable timetable that we actually sign it off and adopt it.
Yes, I suppose.
I agree, Chair.
You're Victoria. You're now you're not on mute.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we'll do if everybody's happy with that. And Janine, it's a really interesting piece of work that you've both done, and we thank you for that. I think it's going to be extraordinarily helpful as we take forward all the other pieces of work that are going on. And I hope you've enjoyed doing it.
Yes, I have.
Thank you very much indeed. And you can go on to your next meeting now.
Thank you.
This is what Zoom and Teams engender, is meeting after meeting.
It is back to back today, I'm afraid. Thank you.
We've got to any other business, I think.
Well, we don't actually officially have AONB on the agenda, Chair.
Oh, right. In that case, we haven't any other business.
It's the date.
Has anybody got anything? That
yes, I have, Chair.
Okay.
I'm disappointed that there's not a representative from Lichfield District Council here today.
Yeah.
And if my memory serves me correctly, there wasn't a representative at the last meeting from Lichfield. Could we please write to the leader of Lichfield District Council and ask that somebody attends our meetings, please?
Didn't I see Stephen Stray?
Yes.
We have an
Richard. Oh, you mean
officer,
a member?
We have officer representation here today. Councillor Ian Eady was due to attend, but unfortunately gave his apologies at the last minute due to a personal commitment. But I can certainly write, Chair.
I noticed that Stafford Borough officer attendance wasn't there either, but that'll be mentioned too. not overlooked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could just explain, I will be revised and giving feedback to Councillor Eady when I see him tomorrow about the meeting.
Oh, well done. We see you now.
Yeah, I've had some. There's been a lot of IT problems this morning at Lichfield,
Fair enough.
So it's not always been working, unfortunately. We've had an email come round at about 8 o'clock this morning saying there's some service issues, but yes, it seems to be about working now. But I've been listening.
Well done. I hope you transmit it to the
yeah,
members of the Cabinet as well. Because there's so many important things that we're dealing with at the moment. Len, you've got your hand up again.
Get down there.
Okay. Anything else? 1, 2, 3. If not, can I thank everybody for their attendance and for the contributions that you've made. Thank you, Ian, Julia and Richard, for all the hard work that you do. And we'll look forward to the AGM in July. And the date after that set out in the agenda papers.
Many thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.